Alright, hey, what is up guys? This is Evie the Techie, and I'm here with my first review, and I'm doing it on the LSR 308 speakers. They're my personal speakers. I use them at my desk. I use them with the SMSL SU8, which I got from Zeos, from his recommendation on YouTube, and it is a beautiful deck, and I love pairing it with my 308s and the 310 subwoofer. These are actually the older version of the speakers that are now available on Amazon. There is now the JBL 308P Mark II, and the subwoofer still hasn't gotten an upgrade. It's same old subwoofer. I've picked up these speakers this past summer. I've had them for about 6 months now, and they're fantastic. They ran me $450 for both the speakers and the subwoofer, with speaker stands and phone blocks and all the wires I needed. Now for anybody going on Amazon trying to buy these new, the older version, they will run you about $200 for each one, so $400 for both of them. Oh, excuse me. Also $400 for the subwoofer itself. So for just the speakers alone and the subwoofer, it's going to be about an $800 setup before even speaker stands and the wires that you're going to need. And for most people, you are probably not going to have a DAC already, so you're going to probably have to invest in that or buy some interesting cables, and I'll get into that later. But alright, let's get into the review. Enough of introductions, here we go. Alright, so first off, I'd like to talk a little bit about the specifications of the speakers themselves. They, as the name would imply, are 8-inch drivers along with a 1-inch silk dome tweeter. I'll give you guys a little bit of a look right now. So these are the 308s themselves. At the top there, you can see that there is this crazy looking waveguide, and this waveguide is actually borrowed from their more top of the line speakers. Speakers that cost upwards of like $2,000. So it's pretty cool that you're getting them at an entry level price of about for the $400 per pair, or even less if you go for the 305s. Alright, now I'll bring you guys down around to see the 310 subwoofer, give you a little look. So, it's under my desk, so it's a little dark, apologies for that, but this is the 310 subwoofer. You can see next to my computer, it's quite large. The width is about like double a regular PC rig. So keep that in mind for whatever setup where you are going to end up putting these. Alright, and now let's just start by talking about the sound itself. And first I'll start by just talking about the 308s, just by themselves without the subwoofer. Alright, as for the sound for just the 308s themselves, I think they just sound amazing right out of the box. You don't have to do any tuning for them. This was my first pair of monitors themselves before I had like a little 2.1 setup from Logitech, the Z623s, and with those, I mean, they were very tinny. They had like, I don't know, like 1 or 2 inch drivers with a tweeter and then a 7-inch subwoofer, so mid-range was not even a thing. Now with these, they perform admirably. It's just a pleasure listening to music. You get imaging, which is basically from the center you should have vocals, and just being able to pinpoint where the instruments and the recordings are in the space around you. So usually vocals are straight in the center, and then maybe you'll have the drum a little bit to the left, and then spatially wherever the rest of the instruments are. And these are quite amazing at it, especially if you get a little bit farther back. I know these are near field, but even midfield, getting about maybe 10 to 15 feet away with a TV setup is actually very nice. And speaking of a TV setup, if you are looking into these speakers and you're thinking about using them in your living room, you're either gonna have to have a DAC to plug them into, or you're gonna have to get some kind of nuts wires. So for most people, you probably have the red and white on the back of your TV cables, just like this. And what I bought when I first got these was the red and black, and then I got them to go to XLR out, which is what you would think for like a microphone. And that's what these take in the back. They can take XLR and they can also take in a 1/4 inch, but they can't just do red and black to red and black, so you're gonna have to get some weird cables. So I'll put the link to these cables in the description, just because it's a very kind of odd wire, but I did find it on Amazon. It was only around, I think around 20 bucks. So once you get these speakers, and if you want to use it in a living room setup, this is, I think, the cheapest and easiest way for the workaround. Alright, however, now that I use these at my computer desk, I use a little bit different of a setup than just those cables plugged into my TV. So now I actually have the SMSL SU8 that Zeus did a review of, and I thought it was a really nice deal for my kind of setup. And what I do is I plug it in USB from my desktop, and then everything's plugged into the LSR 310 subwoofer, and then throws it all the way back out to my 2 speakers. And I think for optimal sound, this would be the way to go if you have these 2 speakers and the subwoofer. Really quite amazing sound. It's going to be an investment, and I'd say unless you listen to a lot of EDM music with like really sub-bass frequencies lower than 50 or 40 hertz, you're probably not going to need to spend the other $400 on this subwoofer, or you could look into getting a cheaper one. But I'd suggest getting the 308s over even the 305s. I think you'll get a wider frequency response going down to that 37 hertz. Will cover the frequency range for just about all music that most people listen to. But again, if you do listen to a lot of EDM or pop music, you might want to get a subwoofer at some point. I would suggest the 310 because they play well together. The 310 subwoofer was literally meant for the 305 and the 308, 306, and 308 in this series. Alright, and before I give my final thoughts on these speakers, I want to just give you a little sample of what they sound like. So I'm going to use my H1N. I'm going to record it straight into the H1N and just sync the audio with my camera afterwards, so you get the best possible audio. And I'll just do some royalty-free music, but something that will give you a good idea of sub-bass, mid-bass, vocals, and yeah, let's get on with the audio. Alright, so I'm just going to do a real-world test, so I'm just going to do some royalty-free music that kind of covers the whole frequency response range, and it's just going to be straight from Spotify and give you, hopefully, a really nice, accurate representation of what the 308s and the 310 subwoofers sound like. Alright, here we go. Alright, so I hope that gave you guys a good representation of what these speakers sound like with the LSR subwoofer, 310 subwoofer, and yeah, I hope you can hear a bit of the imaging and just how these speakers sound. Again, it's just a test with my H1N, which is a pretty good recorder, but you know, it's nothing like hearing it in person. But in conclusion, these speakers sound great. I am not getting rid of them anytime soon. I'm also probably not going to be upgrading anytime soon, since this is pretty much an $800 to $1,000 setup. For you guys, I really suggest buying these because they're at a great price of $50 cheaper than the new ones. And honestly, I think the new ones look a bit ugly with that glossy plastic right around the tweeter. That yeah, it just looks really pretty gaudy and just not appealing to me. These have more of a uniform look, and they honestly sound great. They go down to 37 Hertz, they go up to 24,000 Hertz, and I would really suggest using them on your desk with a nice DAC. If not, you can always use them in your TV room, whatever that may be, and it's definitely better than a soundbar. So, speaking of movies, the 308s themselves sound fantastic for like a movie like Mad Max or Transformers, any kind of action movie, Star Wars. Everything, the imaging makes it really come to life. Also, you get the full frequency range. Though I will say, if you want to experience action movies to the fullest, I would suggest getting a subwoofer, whether it be the 310 for another $400, or maybe just spend like $100 on like a Polk subwoofer that I think is around $150, or maybe even like a Klipsch when they go on sale for about $150. But really, for most people, I think just the 308s themselves are going to be a great selling point at the $400 price range. That being said, there are a lot of other speakers that are just as good. I just happen to really like these, and especially if you're going to be mixing music at all or doing YouTube videos, I think these are just fantastic. And now that they're cheaper than their newer brothers, it's the time to buy. So in conclusion, get these guys. They're great speakers. So that's all I got. I'll see you guys in the next one, and peace.